Now we're going to talk about something called people call it different things. I was taught by a brilliant man named Jim Holdman, and that's a lot of what I share with you, is so much of what I learned from him. But in the whole scheme of fundraising, in the architecture that you put together, it's important that you have a clear understanding of how critical it is to have a solid case statement. We call it a case statement. Different people call it different things. The case statement is what you're going to put at the beginning of your brochures. It's going to be a part of that elevator speech that your media relations folks are going to want you to have. But the case statement is the information that you're able to share with someone that within 3 to 5 minutes, they will know from where your organization comes, the history. They'll have an idea of what you're doing today, what you're providing to the community. And most importantly, the third part of that case statement is their understanding of what you could do if their wallet's open to you, if money was no object. Okay, so there's 3 parts to that case statement. And I've written many, many fundraising plans. And I believe that the power that I specifically brought to that particular plan was that I'm able to whip out these case statements. And you're going to need to be able to create one for yourself that you're going to use over and over again. And so let's use an example. We'll make something up so that you get an idea of what a case statement is like. I can think back to a children's zoo that I was writing a fundraising plan for. And the fundraising plan is important. It's your roadmap. It's how you know how to get from here to there. And I examined that zoo and found out that the first third of what I wrote about was, who are they and where they come from. And it was owned by a family. It was a very interesting, very short history of how the zoo came to be in the possession of the public and the organization that ran it. And then the second part, we talked about what the zoo was providing today. Courses for children, courses for adults. I believe they had internships from the university. And so, again, another short several paragraphs about what is that children's zoo doing today. And then lastly, we really opened it wide and said, if money were no object, what we would be able to do is provide 35% more classes for children. We'd be able to help the school make this learning activity here at the zoo a part of the normal curriculum for all children. We would be able to hold 2 annual husbandry events. That type of thing. Really, it's where you open your mind and say, if money is no object, what could you do? And so it provides those 3 parts. Who you are and where you come from. What you're doing today, what services you're providing. Be specific, give some numbers. We've served 465 meals per week for the last 15 weeks. Or we provided coats to, 830 children. Or we have helped 65 young kids between the ages of 8 and 10 have a great summer by involving them in soccer. So be specific in what you're doing now. And then be equally as specific in what you want to do if money was no object. The reason that you lay out your case statement like this is that if I'm a donor or a potential donor, and I read your case statement in your brochure or someone speaks it to me at an event, it helps frame it for me so that I can get an idea of where you've been. Okay, I get that. Where you are now, I get that. And then as soon as you talk about what you could do if money was no object, that becomes less about you and a whole lot more about me. See, it makes a shift in the vision so that I got to hear what your vision's been doing for you. And then when you talk about what you could do if money's no object, it puts it in my ballpark. It gives me some control. And I can say, well, as an example, I could think to myself, I wonder what it would cost to open that up to all the kids so it's a normal part of the curriculum. Because I may have been a sanitary engineer, I may have collected trash my whole life, and I've got my retirement. You don't know that. I've got a nice fat retirement. And education of kids has always been on my mind. It's not something I've participated in actively. But when I hear you say what can be done if money is no object, and I'm thinking, well, I need to know more about that. Because then when I ask you and you lay out this pyramid plan, which we're going to show, or this program plan when you do a face-to-face, you're going to be able to show that, okay, this part, to be able to make it a part of education for kids, if we had $750,000, we would be able to endow a curriculum program for the students. Now, when we were doing that video out in the park where it was a little nicer view than what you see here in the office, but the battery ran out. And so I want to continue the thought that I had at that time. And I was speaking about that program and how the case statement sets the stage for me to take ownership as the donor. So let's finish that thought. And what I was saying was that once you identify that third part, and that is what could be accomplished if money was no object, then what happens is that, as I said before, you make a shift from you, the organization, talking about where you've come from and what you're doing today, and you lay it right in the lap of the donor to say, you have an opportunity here to take us someplace that we cannot go right now, but we could go if you would step in. And so by allowing the donor to take that opportunity, you're allowing them to share in the vision. And if their needs to give and what they're interested in and all that align up with what your forward vision can be, then you've got a winner there. But that's the important of that case statement. It frames everything, where you've been, what you're doing today, and most importantly for the donor, what you could do if money was no object, which helps place them in the pathway of that vision. And we'll talk more about that later. So we'll see you, of course, in some future videos. So see you again soon.